Hello everyone. Welcome to the Lightning Ball channel. If you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, please do so and activate the notification bell. Your support fuels my continued efforts. In our previous episode, Rimuru fell into Michael's trap and was forced to face this unprecedentedly powerful opponent head-on. Michael demonstrated his despair-inducing strength, easily knocking down Diablo, Sue and Leon with invisible attacks, leaving Rimuru facing the greatest crisis of his life. The upcoming battle between Rimuru and Michael is undoubtedly another highlight of the TenSura light novel series. Rimuru is set for further evolution. Let's get started. At the beginning of this one-on-one battle, the mindsets of both parties were very different. Michael appeared to be at ease. In contrast, Rimuru, standing against Michael, was filled with unease as his opponent's attack methods were completely beyond his understanding, and even Ciel couldn't grasp the situation. However, Rimuru's heart remained unshaken because as long as Veldora was around, he was immortal and could be revived even if killed by Michael. But then, Rimuru began to worry about Veldora. If something happened to Veldora simultaneously, the situation would become uncontrollable. Ciel assured Rimuru that there was no need to worry about Veldora and encouraged him, saying that if he felt uneasy, the simplest solution was to defeat Michael. Ciel's statement was so correct that it left Rimuru speechless and unsure how to refute it. Rimuru couldn't help but remark that if he could defeat Michael, he wouldn't be troubled here. Ciel, unfazed, stated that she had anticipated this situation and mentioned the possibility of activating an emergency protection mode. Rimuru had no idea what Ciel's emergency protection mode was, but from Ciel's tone, it was clear she wasn't asking for permission. She had probably already activated it. Ciel remained silent, further confirming Rimuru's suspicion. Rimuru decided to trust Ciel completely, saying she should handle things her way. Ciel, filled with determination and excitement, promised to do her best and not disappoint Rimuru-sama. Unsure of what to do next, Rimuru decided to try attacking first. He raised his sword, but this idea was too naive. Michael coldly remarked that Rimuru's lack of despair was commendable, but he also asserted that Rimuru could never defeat him. As Michael finished speaking, Rimuru's movements halted. No. It was as if the entire world had stopped moving. Rimuru recognized this sensation. At the same time, Ciel confirmed her hypothesis, stating that the current state resembled the method Michael had used to defeat Diablo, and was similar to the phenomenon during Guy and Chloe's battle. Rimuru also seemed to understand, and Ciel confirmed his guess, identifying it as Time Stop. Rimuru felt a bit panicked. Time Stop sounded like the ultimate attack from a manga, an unbeatable ability. No matter how strong one was, they couldn't win against an opponent who could stop time. It was a bug-level power. In reality, it was just as dire. Winning the fight was out of the question. Rimuru could only stand motionless, awaiting Michael's attack. Resigned, Rimuru adjusted his mindset, deciding to admit defeat and figure things out after being revived. But then he noticed something strange. If time had stopped, why could he still communicate with Ciel? Ciel explained that thanks to the emergency protection mode, they could now perceive the stopped world. Rimuru, moved to tears, praised the reliable Ciel, thinking they could now handle Michael's attack. He felt slightly relieved but quickly realized he was mistaken. Michael's sword was getting closer, but Rimuru's body still couldn't move. This was expected, as being able to perceive the stopped world didn't mean they could move freely within it. Rimuru had seen Ciel's confident demeanor and thought everything was resolved, only to find he still had to brace himself for the impending strike. Since Rimuru hadn't done anything, he couldn't blame Ciel. He decided to observe Michael's swordsmanship and combat habits to prepare for the next encounter. However, Ciel's voice came again, saying it was too early to give up. In the next moment, a rapier thrust out from Rimuru's side, clashing with Michael's attack, creating a clear, sharp sound. This was a familiar technique. The one who saved Rimuru was none other than a grown-up Chloe. Her night sky-like long hair fluttered, and she wielded the mythical rapier Moonlight, dressed in holy armaments. The scene looked like a heroic rescue, except this time, the hero was a beautiful girl, and Rimuru was the one being saved. Rimuru still couldn't speak, so he couldn't respond to Chloe. Ciel assured him that there was no problem. Infants weren't affected by time-space restrictions and could transmit information under any circumstances, even in this stopped world. According to Ciel, to understand the outside situation in this stopped world, they had to use infants, a substance not limited by time and space, to gain vision and convey thoughts. Rimuru and Ciel shared a soul, so they could directly exchange infants. However, for someone outside, like Chloe, conveying messages required embedding their thoughts into infants to send them to the other party. With Ciel's help, Rimuru quickly mastered the method and conveyed his thanks to Chloe, explaining that he still couldn't move. Chloe replied in the same way, saying she understood Rimuru's situation and praised him for being able to use thought communication. Just as Rimuru was feeling proud, Chloe added that having Ciel with him made it unsurprising that he could manage such a feat. Rimuru was shocked and surprised that Chloe knew about Ciel's existence. Ciel explained that because Cronoa existed within Chloe, her own identity had long been exposed. This was also why Chloe and Cronoa had secretly taken on the role of guardians. This was one of Ciel's trump cards. Let's recap. Ciel had initially determined that Masayuki would be targeted and also deduced that Michael might use this opportunity to lure Rimuru away and find a chance to kill him. For Michael, no plan would be more ideal than one that could simultaneously solve his two biggest problems, Rimuru and Masayuki. Michael executed this plan by using Leon as bait, successfully luring Rimuru away from Ingracia and into this trap. Michael wasn't foolish. He understood that after Velbrind was banished by Felway, the likelihood of her returning to the current world on her own was very small. It was highly possible that the peculiar being, the slime, had provided some sort of assistance. Thus, Michael knew that Rimuru could break Leon's control and thus used Leon as bait to execute his plan to capture Rimuru. While Michael successfully anticipated Rimuru's actions, Ciel also successfully anticipated Michael's moves, leading to the formulation of this counter-plan. Throughout this entire process, only Rimuru was clueless about the details. This is why the highest-rated series of this franchise is actually the Slime Diaries. Our Rimuru-sama's main abilities are being adorable. Realizing this, Rimuru felt a bit embarrassed. However, Rimuru's actions were actually the key to the entire plan's success. If Rimuru hadn't fallen into the trap, Michael would have taken other actions. This was why Ciel, ensuring Rimuru-sama's safety, allowed Rimuru to come to Leon's battlefield as part of the plan. This was also why Ciel negotiated with Cronoa to assist, as the opponent was Michael, and guaranteeing Rimuru-sama's safety was paramount. Of course, Ciel's only miscalculation was Michael having the ability to use time stop. Coincidentally, Chloe could also act within stop time, so this miscalculation allowed Ciel to develop the emergency protection mode successfully. From this perspective, things turned out well. Since they were already able to observe the stopped world in this way, it was only a matter of time before Rimuru could get the body to move as well. Ciel remained as confident as ever, so Rimuru, unable to do anything himself, decided to seriously observe the battle between Michael and Chloe. Perhaps due to Chloe's appearance, Michael ceased his attack. Michael calmly expressed his disbelief that anyone other than himself and Velzard could move in this stopped world. Michael said that as a Manus, it wasn't surprising for him to reach this realm, but Chloe's ability to do so was astonishing. It was clear that Michael was unaware that Guy could also move within stop time. Guy likely gained his time-stopping ability from Velzard, and Michael had also obtained the time-stop skill from Velzard's abilities. We will explain this in more detail in the next episode. Interestingly, although Velzard was controlled, it was evident that Michael didn't get any information about Guy from Velzard, suggesting that Velzard was very cautious in protecting any information related to Guy. Michael's statements seemed more like an attempt to provoke Chloe. If Chloe reacted to Michael's claim about being a Manus, it would imply that Chloe also had a Manus. Rimuru was worried that Chloe might give away information to Michael. However, Chloe ignored Michael and simply stated that time stop was actually quite simple. This was a perfect response. Rimuru then remembered that although he still saw Chloe as a kid, she had lived through countless millennia and had become the strongest hero numerous times, reigning supreme with unmatched wisdom and strategy. Michael then asked a second question about the disappearance of the Lord of Hope within Chloe. This confirmed Rimuru's earlier suspicion that Michael could monitor all angelic ultimate skills. Since Michael asked about this, it indicated that the Lord of Hope had been completely integrated into Chloe's power, meaning Cronoa had successfully modified the Lord of Hope. At this point, Ciel expressed her annoyance, lamenting that it was a shame Manus Cronoa had refused her help. Ciel coveted Chloe's skills, and if she had been involved in the skill modification, Rimuru might already be able to move freely in the stopped world. Returning to the battle between Michael and Chloe, Chloe coldly stated that she had no reason to explain everything to Michael. Michael, not expecting to get an answer, declared that he would have to eliminate Chloe as an obstacle. Chloe retorted that she would make Michael regret it, and the battle between the two began. Rimuru carefully observed the battle and noticed that the movement speed of infants was constant, and without any time lag, as expected in a stopped world. Infants could transcend the limitations of time and space, enabling communication and vision through the exchange of information. However, another question raised: why could Michael and Chloe move as living beings? Ciel explained that if a spiritual life form converted all its constituent matter into infants, it could transform into a digital nature. In other words, by becoming infants themselves, they could move in the stopped world. Ciel asked Rimuru if he wanted to accelerate the full activation of the emergency protection mode to evolve into a digital nature. Although this wasn't really a question, Rimuru happily answered yes. Understanding that he needed to complete this evolution quickly to intervene in the battle between Michael and Chloe, Rimuru was eager, and Ciel enthusiastically began the process. Returning to the fight, Chloe and Michael were evenly matched. Because the transmission speed of infants was fixed, the key to victory was the ability to manipulate infants skillfully, controlling infants to outmaneuver the opponent. In the stopped world, the concept of defense didn't exist. For individuals like Chloe and Michael who could move, they would interfere with each other's infants, creating a combat dynamic of simultaneous offense and defense. However, for those who couldn't move, the stopping of time meant all their power was nullified, including molecular forces. If attacked under these conditions, the fundamental structure of their existence would instantly collapse. Regardless of whether it was a sturdy wall or a weapon forged from steel, the atomic bonds holding them together would fail, leaving them defenseless. Essentially, nothing could withstand an attack in the stopped world. The ability to move within this world became the definitive line separating the strong from the weak. Hearing this, Rimuru couldn't help but marvel that Diablo and Sue had managed to survive. Ciel explained that Diablo, being one of the strongest beings in this world, seemed to have anticipated the anomaly and activated a magical defense barrier before time stopped. Rimuru was impressed, though he had just noted that defense didn't exist in the stopped world. It appeared that magic could still function. Ciel confirmed Rimuru's suspicion, explaining that magic couldn't be activated in the stopped world but had to be prepared before time stopped. As for Sue, being a dark shinobi, the body that was struck was one of his parallel existences. Sue's other body was hiding in the shadows, looking for an opportunity to attack Michael, but due to the stopped world, Sue's actions were meaningless. In addition to the lack of defense in the stopped world, another crucial point was that the one who activated time stop could be at a disadvantage. As mentioned in episode 41, Chloe had tried to use time stop but reverted to her child form due to insufficient energy. The reason Michael hadn't yet deactivated time stop was likely to prevent Rimuru from participating in the battle. Moreover, repeatedly activating and deactivating time stop would consume more energy, similar to how frequently turning an appliance on and off wastes more electricity. Ciel speculated that Michael had only recently acquired the ability to use time stop and was not yet familiar with it, which was why he had used it multiple times already. Ciel continued to verify her hypothesis, stating that time stop didn't just freeze time in a specific area but the entire world. For example, if Michael activated time stop, Guy, thousands of miles away, would immediately know someone was using it. Since Rimuru hadn't felt that peculiar sensation since Chloe's battle with Guy, It was clear that this was Michael's first time using Time Stop. Rimuru felt a chill down his spine. If someone used Time Stop just as they were about to strike their opponent, they could kill the opponent without any resistance. Ciel explained that this was what Guy and Chloe were doing in their battle. At the time, Rimuru hadn't realized that Guy and Chloe were using such advanced techniques, and both Guy and Chloe had claimed it was just a warm-up. The more Rimuru understood Time Stop, the more terrifying it seemed, like an unreasonable cheat. Ciel assured Rimuru that she would study it diligently, and no need to worry. As Rimuru observed, the battle between Chloe and Michael was nearing its conclusion. The two remained evenly matched, but Rimuru's fingertips were starting to move, and slowly his entire body began to regain sensation. Ciel informed him that the evolution to digital nature was almost complete, which laid the foundation for victory. Once Rimuru could move in the stopped world, he could turn the tide of battle. However, it seemed he might not need to intervene. Michael declared he would eliminate the pesky hero who was obstructing him. Chloe responded confidently, saying that Michael seemed proud of being a Manus, but there was nothing special about being a Manus. Chloe's statement clearly indicated that she, too, had a Manus within her. This successfully threw Michael off balance. Seizing the opportunity, Chloe's cold gaze pierced through Michael as she activated her skill, Reverse Fate. This was Chloe's trump card, allowing her to further manipulate time within the stopped world, a cheat on top of a cheat. This demonstrated Chloe's true strength in the light novel, where her battle scenes had been reduced significantly. Perhaps she would have more opportunities to shine in the future, in Volume 22. Even though time was stopped, Michael's symbolic clock began to turn in the opposite direction. Reverse Fate sounded like it allowed everything to reveal its true form, but it wasn't so simple. It actually showed things as Chloe envisioned them. Lodged within Rudra's body, feeling immense emptiness after losing his master Veldonava, and later driven to madness trying to revive him, the Lord of Justice devolved from a Manus back into an ultimate skill. Rudra's body, which had been sustained by the skill, began to crumble under its enormous power. The ultimate skill, Lord of Justice, having lost its host's obsession, had no reason to maintain its form. In this vast emptiness, Chloe extended an olive branch to the Lord of Justice, asking if it wanted to follow her now that it had lost its direction. Chloe's offer gave the Lord of Justice a choice: disappear from the world or stay by becoming part of Chloe. At that moment, the voice of the world echoed throughout the stopped world. With Chloe Aubert having gathered the elements of courage, hope, and justice, the missing component of the Lord of Hope, previously altered by Cronoa, was now complete. The Lord of Space and Time fully evolved into the God of Space and Time. Thus, the second God-level ultimate skill in TenSura appeared. Rimuru concernedly asked Chloe about her condition. Chloe happily replied that she seemed to have truly merged with Cronoa. The remaining childishness in Chloe disappeared, replaced by a mature and alluring presence characteristic of Cronoa. Chloe's consciousness and Cronoa's had become one, and there was no longer a Manus Cronoa within her. The book described this from Rimuru's perspective, noting that Chloe could now perfectly control time without the help of Manus. After Michael dissipated, Chloe smoothly took over the control of time, maintaining the stopped state. However, before Rimuru could fully process this, something unexpected happened. He suddenly felt Chloe's beauty close in on him, and then a soft sensation on his lips. Since they were still in the stopped world, this was beyond his control. Yes, Chloe had kissed Rimuru. It was a strange action. Why did Chloe kiss Rimuru? Chloe said she felt Rimuru needed this kiss. Ciel, however, was very angry, calling Chloe's move a clever bribe. The kiss contained remnants of the Lord of Hope, something Ciel had always desired. But Ciel believed she could acquire it through other means, rather than having Rimuru-sama obtain it through a kiss. Ciel vowed to be more vigilant in the future to prevent such sudden attacks. Rimuru found Ciel's overreaction a bit hard to understand but couldn't argue against her words. Rimuru quickly changed the topic, curious if Chloe could still turn back into a child. Chloe said she could transform freely from a child to an old lady without scaring her classmates. Rimuru and Chloe exchanged glances, understanding each other's thoughts. The energy Chloe absorbed was far less than Michael's, indicating that Michael hadn't been completely defeated. Rimuru confidently said he would handle the latter part of the battle, urging Chloe to return to the Monster Federation to rest and recover after her rapid evolution. Chloe, happy that Rimuru cared for her, flashed a cute, girlish smile. Meanwhile, Chloe lifted the time stop. Her control over time was as natural as breathing, making Rimuru wonder just how powerful Chloe had become. Alright, that's all for this video. In our next episode, we will continue with the second half of the battle between Rimuru and Michael, which marks the true beginning of the fight. To be precise, it will be the ultimate battle between Manus Ciel and Manus Michael. After this battle, Rimuru will successfully obtain all the 7 Virtues' ultimate skills as well as Velzard's Dragon Factor. This was Michael's ultimate goal, but it ended up being realized by Rimuru. The next episode will be even more exciting than this one. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. Your support is greatly appreciated. See you in the next one.